For the next week, all we're likely to hear much about is the coronation of King Charles III. And of course, it's an event of considerable national significance. The history of Britain is a monarchical one. Whilst children within our woke, hard-left, agenda-driven education system are more likely to learn about British involvement in colonialism and slavery than anything else these days in the interests of diversity and inclusivity, in fact, the true history of Britain is one of kings and queens and wars, both lost and won. And more than any other public figure, whoever our reigning monarch might happen to be, has the potential to create social unity amongst the people of this country, as well as bolstering our reputation internationally. Sadly, that potential isn't going to be realised in King Charles III. A perennial disappointment and mild embarrassment, British people are resigned to the reality of his reign as monarch, but quite frankly, it's no wonder the Queen clung onto the throne as long as she did. We've seen many iterations of King Charles's character, from the sulky snowflake of his youth, to the humorless, haughty adulterer of his prime, to the eco-crisis peddling, put-upon, apologetic, grumpy, short-tempered wokist we see today. We hoped he might quickly step up to the mark upon taking over from his mother, only to see him have a silly tantrum over a leaky pen. Behaviour you might forgive of a 5-year-old, but certainly not of a 74-year-old man who's had every privilege and advantage life can bestow upon a person. Still, we'll all play along. We'll see the usual pomp and ceremony, the flag waving, the slightly creepy bunting, the sad street parties with neighbours who don't usually get on, exchanging brief, awkward, insincere pleasantries over some disgusting sponge cake and soggy sandwiches. We'll all gratefully accept the day off work we've been granted, another day of unproductivity in a country where most of the time vast swathes of the workforce are either on strike, shirking from home, or wallowing lazily in some public sector non-job while the economy slumps even further. Another day off before the whole nation goes back to bleating about pay rises. Pay us more, double my salary, so that inflation continues to skyrocket. A pint of milk and a loaf of bread sets you back 20 quid in a country where soon it will be possible for someone to be a millionaire, but also be on benefits. Dream the impossible dream. Nothing can shake the fact that Charles has the aura of a weak man. You can dress him up in military regalia all you like, but the man has the permanent demeanour of someone who's just been defecated on by a pigeon. The world will watch this coronation and wonder why we're putting a crown on this man, the visible product of genetic inbreeding. Internationally, our king will be perceived as a bit of a joke, and sadly that's the perception of Britain in general. A country where half the population can't seem to stop crying about a democratic decision to leave the EU that happened 7 years ago. A country whose hard-left educational establishment indoctrinates young people to hate their heritage. How can any of us expect a new generation to contribute productively to a society that they've been brainwashed into hating? We can't, and they don't. Instead, huge numbers of people under 30 in Britain are mired in TikTok self-obsession, crying about their gender pronouns, crying about unconscious bias and institutional sexism and racism, expecting handouts, expecting everything handed on a plate to them without having to train, work and make sacrifices for it. The problem with monarchy, of course, is that it hinges on an accident of birth. You have to take what you can get. The firstborn, and what we got, was King Charles. Still far better than Prince Andrew ascending the throne, isn't it? Say what you like about Charles, and admittedly I've said quite a few uncharitable things already, but at least he's not one of Epstein's nonces like his brother. In his defence, we can say that Charles does seem to be quite benign. He seems to be someone who wants to make the world a better place, without possessing the intellectual wherewithal to know how that might be achieved. Instead, he's been swallowed up by the cult of climate crisis. He's lowered himself to the position of just another WEF shill, another Attenborough, another seemingly kindly avuncular figure peddling doom-mongering propaganda. Most of the country is being horribly impoverished by net zero, seeing their quality of life greatly diminished by eye-watering covert green taxes on anything and everything. But of course that's beyond King Charles's comprehension. We can't expect him to know how money works for the rest of us, to hope to God we'll still be able to pay the mortgage and feed our kids in a year's time. In an ideal world, the crown would have skipped a generation. It would have jumped directly from Queen Elizabeth to Prince William, a rare member of the royal family who seems to have some strength and gravitas about him. Still youthful, but of a pre-woke generation that understands the merits of hard work, self-sacrifice and social cohesion. Part of a pre-woke generation that finds the current trend amongst young people for self-obsession and competitive victimhood incredibly unpalatable. He's part of a generation that still understands the strength and value of the family unit. That economic and social strength and success of an entire society, an entire nation, depends on the commitment, support, hard work and compromise we devote to our family relationships. A man who, unlike his brother, doesn't seem to let his emotion cloud his judgment or to allow himself to fall under the influence of exploitative people. If Prince William represents a Britain we can be proud of, Harry represents the opposite. A Britain of emotionally incontinent, wet behind the ears, self-described victims. A Britain of young people who want to blame all their struggles in life on their parents. A Britain of young people who demand opportunity and reward based not on their merits and hard work, but based on their perceived status as an oppressed minority. A Britain of young people who, if they can't trade on their ethnicity or sexual orientation, decide to market themselves as neurodivergent instead. My life's so difficult because of autism. Everything's a struggle because of my ADHD. Give me special privileges. Give me prizes. Massage my ego. A generation of woke, self-indulgent misfits, unwilling to put any effort into fitting in, to making a social contribution, unwilling to engage in anything but whining manufactured victimhood. More than anything, King Charles III mirrors the anti-meritocratic society we now live in. If a gibbering, spineless pillock like that is worthy of the throne, then morbidly obese people are worthy of being models. Elderly geriatrics are worthy of being the American president. Pedos are worthy of being TV presenters. In a society where someone as entirely unimpressive as Charles can be king, anybody can be anything they say they are. Men can call themselves women. Women can call themselves men. And if you deny that questionable reality, then you're an unconscionable bigot. In a world where facts continue to be secondary to feelings, merit secondary to victimhood status, and telling the truth gets you cancelled, Charles is the king that reflects a civilization in decline, a civilization that scorns merit, talent and hard work, and instead thrusts status upon people too weak to carry it. Please do like and subscribe, and support my content via Patreon or PayPal by following the links below this video. Video of my latest live stand-up performance now available to view on the Comedy Unleashed YouTube channel. New tour date in Southampton now on sale, links for which you can also find beneath this video. This channel only exists with your support. Thanks for watching.